What's up, guys? Philip Collin Pack Pythons back in the snake pit, and today we're talking about 3 things that I would have done differently starting out a reptile breeding facility. And I really hope that you guys take this to heart if you're considering breeding. This is some big things I wish I had done differently. Before we get into that, absolutely want to shout out Six-Eyed Reptiles. This shirt is fantastic. I love it. Super cool, nice and comfy, looks awesome. One more shout out that I'm gonna be, I guess, kind of reviewing or whatever. Davinci Boa Supplements. A lot of people have been talking about these on social media and YouTube. I saw it first on Mutation Creations. So Billy's using this and he's had some good success. Hopefully I will too. I've only got one female that's been off of food for a few months. She's acting like she wants to eat and killing animals, but she's not eating. So hopefully we can, change things up and see if that helps. But one other thing about Davinci Boa, before I forget, they send it with a single pipette type syringe, whatever you want to call it. It's a pipette. I absolutely would not recommend ever reusing a single pipette on different animals, ever. It's too difficult to clean and sanitize or whatever just because of the nature of the inside being so narrow. These are super cheap. Get them on Amazon and you can single use them and throw them in the trash. Make sure that you keep your biosecurity in mind when you're medicating multiple animals, and that will keep your animals happy and healthy. So, what are the 3 things I would do differently if I started breeding or started collecting animals right now? Number 1 is, it's kind of hard to explain. I had this impulse or this, I felt compelled to fill the space I had. So I had, taken inventory of how much room I had in this space, how much my wife was willing to, allow me to fill. And then I started figuring out how many shelves I could fit in this space. And then once I started building shelves, I started figuring out how many animals I could fit in those shelves. And it kind of snowballed into like, well, I can afford it and I have room for it, so why wouldn't I get it? As far as raising up animals, the sooner you buy them, the sooner they'll be ready to breed. There's another part of that we'll get into that's going to be the 3rd reason, and it has to do with the adults. But in particular, it would be best, even if you had more space, even if you have more money, to only grow as quickly as you can quarantine. So buying a small number of animals from one breeder in particular, let's say, and putting those animals into quarantine, testing for nidovirus, which is very important, and then observing them for a period of time and not being in some rush to move them out of quarantine. Now, obviously I could have bought all these animals and put them all into quarantine, but then you've got a ton of animals in a giant quarantine that's as big as your main collection, with the likelihood of cross-contamination in your quarantine being increased because of the number of animals you have. So clearly the risk reward is not there. It's best to buy in small quantities, quarantine carefully. It's a lot easier to watch your biosecurity with small numbers of animals, and then slowly, as they've proven themselves to be healthy over a period of months, tested negative for nidovirus, those get moved into the main collection and they stay here happy and healthy. Number 2 of the things that I would have done is, before I had invested quite as much in buying new animals, I definitely should have stopped and bought an ultrasound machine. I tried breeding without an ultrasound machine. I actually have a friend nearby who came and ultrasounded all of my adults at one point. Well, my adult females, ultrasound the males. And that was helpful, but it would have been more helpful to have that at the beginning of the season and throughout the season of my first breeding, my first pairings, knowing when to put the males with them, not overworking the males because you don't know exactly where the females are. A lot of people out there palpate, which is where you use your hands to feel for follicles. I cannot do that. 2 reasons. One, I feel like when there is an egg in there, I feel like I'm going to crush it, which I know is not logical or whatever, but I'm just still a little young at it, a little paranoid. But aside from palpating, you're just shooting in the dark, hoping that you catch it when it's, when she's ready, or that you're not breeding too soon and that you're not pairing excessively. And that affects your ability to work logically as you breed and as you pair. So ultrasound machine is a must for anyone that doesn't know how to palpate. I'll just say it like that. I am not breeding this year or this season, or I haven't bred since early last year. So it's been a year since I paired anything. It might have been longer than that, honestly. I don't recall exactly, but before I start pairing again later this year, which is the plan currently, I will own an ultrasound machine, and I will not start pairing any females until they start showing growth of follicles. So we'll stick to that. Finally, number 3, buying adult females. I know for sure that there are, in general, 2 groups of people selling adult females. You have people who are moving on to better genetics. Well, maybe there's 3 groups. You got people who are just genuinely getting out of the hobby, are not interested in keeping that animal anymore and selling it. And, that's clearly possible. You also have people who are moving on to better genetics. They've produced from a female a better offspring. They've raised that offspring up, and now they're moving on and selling the older female. Nothing wrong with the female, right? But there is a 3rd set of people who are selling adults that are just problem animals. Not necessarily that they're unhealthy. They could be unhealthy and you not know it, but could be that she doesn't like eating well, or she doesn't pair well, or she didn't produce well, or she's gone several seasons and not produced. Could be that she is a mouser and doesn't like to eat well and doesn't really put on weight well. There's so many things that could go wrong, and it's so much easier to be patient, which again goes back to part 1, being patient about growing your collection. If you had purchased your own young hatchling females, or even yearling females, or whatever, something that's in the mid-range, preferably hatchlings. It's good to know what you're raising up. You learn the personalities of these snakes. They're not like robots. They don't all behave the same, for sure. And knowing them and knowing their preferences and knowing how they like to be kept and how they like to be fed makes a big difference. And it makes a big difference for their successful future breeding. So I would absolutely have purchased all hatchling animals and raised them all up myself, for sure, 100%. Did I get I got 5 or 6 clutches for my first season by purchasing adult females? Yeah. Did I learn a lot in that process? Yes. That was really my main intent of purchasing adults, was to try to get the experience as quickly as possible with the egg handling, pairings, dealing with clutches, cutting eggs, raising hatchlings, the whole process. I really wanted to get that, under my belt. And just kind of all goes back to that feeling of urgency that really has some negative side effects. And you should really check yourself and take your time easing into this hobby. Absolutely, go start buying snakes as soon as you can afford them. Just be cautious about how you let that ripple out of control into buying as fast as you can. So that's it for today. Again, shout out to Six Side Reptiles. I'll put their links down below. Y'all go show them some love. I guess that's it. I got a couple videos planned pretty soon. Those cobra eggs, I'll put a link right here. Those cobra eggs will be hatching soon over at First Class Pythons, and we will be doing a video when that happens. So stay tuned. Lots of stuff happening. You guys take it easy. If it ain't easy, don't take it. Peace.